Good evening and welcome to Hello, It's Us. Hello, It's Us is dedicated to educating the general public about issues that are important to people with disabilities, and we are confident that as you view the shows, you'll realize that those very same issues are important to the community at large. Hello, It's Us is brought to you through a collaboration between the University of Iowa Center for Disabilities and Development, our friends at Uptown Bill's Coffee Shop, and the good people here at Public Access Television. My name is Mike Hoenig. I am a program coordinator at the University of Iowa Center for Disabilities and Development. I'm one of the co-hosts for Hello, It's Us. Keith?
Yes, I'm Keith Ruff, the other co-host. I am now retired from independent living, but I'm writing a book. So,
Which we promised to be on another episode.
yes.
Excellent. Well, tonight we have a very special guest on Hello, It's Us. She's a longtime friend and colleague of both Keith and mine. And without further ado, we're gonna introduce her right now. And her name is Cherie Clark. Cherie, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are, where you grew up and so forth, and if you're comfortable doing so, a little bit about your disability or what brings you into this discussion this evening.
Oh, I'm thrilled. First of all, thank you for inviting me. Where should I start? I'm 65 years old, so I was born in 1950. It's important to know that I was born at a time and place when people with disabilities were typically put in the institutions as babies or certainly as children. Well, my parents didn't do that. They decided to keep me at home, and they wanted to make sure that I was in the school system, the public school system in Des Moines. We had a wonderful time in Des Moines. Mom made sure that I was schooled in Des Moines. She was a wonderful advocate for me. And I gotta tell you that she was the one that advocated for me to get my hearing checked when I was about age 7 and found out that, lo and behold, I got a diagnosis of a severe to profound hearing loss at age 7. By age 18, I got my diagnosis of arthritis, and I skipped right over the big one of cerebral palsy, CP, which was diagnosed at age 3. Well, I adapted very quickly in the school, in the public school system. They were amazed at how well I was able to do. With very little help. I went all the way through college, through through worked in college and even started working on my master's degree. And I loved going to school, just loved it. But I decided that I really wanted to go to work. And that's where I really got my first taste of advocacy. Advocating not only for myself, but also for other people with disabilities. I was working in nursing homes and graduated from that to working in group homes, and eventually I made my way to the Center for Disabilities and Development here in Iowa City. Mike?
So, and when you worked for the Center for Disabilities and Development, that's when I first met you.
Yeah.
And Keith, I don't remember
Yes.
when you and Cherie met, but
That's when I first met her.
I remember it was like it was yesterday. Cherie, you can talk more about the details if you'd like, but you were working for Iowa Compass, which, for those who may not know, is a statewide information and referral program. And I was working at a Center for Independent Living at the time, and I believe that I was on some sort of an advisory committee. Do you remember that Compass had? And I was supposed to advocate on behalf of Compass. Well, I really didn't understand what it was. And there was some information that was being shared, and it was in print, about how Compass was supposed to, how we were supposed to present information on Compass and when we were advocating. And I just remember it being totally inaccessible. And I remember getting this call from somebody named Cherie, and she said, I haven't had a lot of experience in making things accessible, but we're going to brainstorm this together. And I believe that you went so far as to tape record a bunch of information so that, and then describe some of these photos or taxonomies or whatever they were. And I just knew right from that moment that we were, number one, we were going to be friends, and number two, that you really got it when it came to accommodating people with other disabilities other than your own. So that seems like that's an important part of what you're all about.
Very, as long as you have been working on advocacy, what is one of the major changes you've seen from when you started up to now?
Well, I think probably the biggest change has been the ADA, the advent of the Americans with Disabilities Act. We tend to call it the ADA for short. It is changed the lives of so many people with disabilities. It has just made so many changes in not only in the lives of people with disabilities, but also access in the community. So now people who live in the community can get around in the community. we can be a part of the community in a way that we could not before 1990. And I know that both of you remember those days.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely changed our lives. And so I think that that's been a watershed for us. And when I hear people say, oh, we haven't made any progress, I just really beg to differ with them on that.
Yeah.
I agree. And I wonder, I've been fortunate to know you since back in that 1991 or whatever it was. And when I think about the ADA and what that has meant particularly to you in terms of some of the advocacy that you've done, Cherie, I can't help thinking of PADS, which is an organization that you helped to get started, maybe started on your own, up in Cedar Rapids. And I'm wondering, and I'm not sure if that organization would have ever come to be without the ADA, and certainly some of the successes that you've had. Obviously, there's a lot of hard work that you and others, if it hadn't been for your hard work, it wouldn't have come to pass. But the ADA, having that legislation to support you as you went about advocating for what was right, had to be a really big help. So I'm wondering if you'd be willing to talk a little bit about PADS and what it is and what some of the access barriers that you've been able to break down and as an organization.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I do have the mission statement right in front of me. PAD stands for Peer Action Disability Support. PADS is dedicated to the empowerment of people with disabilities by people with disabilities through peer support, community education, advocacy, and action. PADS has been a unique group based in Linn County, devoted to improving the lives of people with disabilities since its inception in January of 2003. We're really just getting started, but we've got this firm foundation in advocacy. I think you're right, Mike, when I hear you say that we're rooted in advocacy, because that's really what we do. We have this foundation in advocacy. It's what we do, and it's so much a part of the group. we take pride in the advocacy that we've done. We've worked with Walmart and the Meridian Banks. We've worked with College. We've worked with Wendy's, and we've made some real strides with each of those institutions within our community, not just to bring them up to ADA code, but to have them welcome people with disabilities into their institutions.
That's terrific.
Cherie, working as long as you have in the advocacy field, what would you recommend to today's generation that didn't have to do all that fighting and arguing? What would you tell today's generation that is benefiting from the work the three of us have done?
Some good question. I think one thing we need to do, we need to invite the younger people to get active and involved in advocacy. We need for them to see how important it is, the value of that advocacy is like so important. I think that it's not just it's not just advocacy, it's also training. We have to do training. Training is a critical piece that the old-timers must do. We must be willing to share our wisdom, what we've learned. What works, what doesn't work.
And I think a challenge that we face when we think about doing training these days is that people are so used to sound bites and little things online. I know that I was talking with a former coworker about trying to figure out how to do youth training of people with disabilities on advocacy. And this young person was saying, well, I don't like to sit in a class, but put it on a video game and teach me how to, have it be related to gaming technology. And I guess maybe I don't know if it's a generational thing or not, but I just don't know how we accomplish. I mean, one of the things that I think has been so helpful in the training that I've received, and even in the advocacy, the work that, let's say, that the three of us have done, is that camaraderie and that peer support that we build by being together and learning from one another. So I don't know, Cherie, if you've thought anything about this, but I mean, I know that you're a technology person too, so You know, I'm guessing that you think that technology plays a role, but do you still think there's that we have to be able to find a way to bring these young people in so that they experience that same kind of peer support that we've experienced over the years?
I absolutely think so. I think it's critical. I still think that not only is there a role for training, it must happen. It's got to be done in small groups. It's got to be done in intimate setting where people can really learn and really understand the importance of what it is that the material is trying to teach them.
And I think that people ought to know that you know of what you speak, not just because you're an advocate, but because of the role that you've played in training Iowans with disabilities. Cherie and I were fortunate enough, well, Keith was actually on the grant too.
Yeah.
We had the Iowans with Disabilities Exercising Advocacy Skills Grant. Keith, you were on the management team, and I believe we're on the selection committee.
Yes.
And I was honored to be selected to be the director of that project. But Cherie was the lead author of the Ideas curriculum, which is a three-part, going from very basic, what is advocacy, to information and how to make systems, how to change systems. I don't know, Cherie, if you'd like to say anything about that, either that process of writing the curriculum or about using it. I mean, I know that that's something that you continue to champion to this day.
Yeah, in fact, it is still being used after 22 years. It just is a testament to how good that curriculum is. It's basic self-advocacy, basic information on services, that's getting services, what services are, and then it's basic information on advocacy, and that's how to influence the policymakers. That's real basic stuff.
Cherie, do you think, and I want a real thinking answer, that over the years, since ADA has been in effect, that any of the training we do now has to be changed a little to meet the needs of today's disability?
Well, I do think it all needs to be updated, but I think the more critical factor is we gotta get funding for training that is, when we have trainings that are good, viable trainings that are not being utilized well, that are not being utilized at all, that are sitting on a shelf, because they're just not, the funding is not there to use these curricula. I think that that's just a real shame. We were able, just very recently, to put on 5 weeks of training for 15 participants and up to 5 trainers. They floated in and out. The trainers floated in and out. For, I believe it was about $900.
Wow.
Now, that's just, it's just, to be able to do that, you just shouldn't let those curricula sit on a shelf someplace.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, that there's a lot of good content out there, and you know, and Iowa advocacy in particular. I think between the ideas and the continuing to the living well and the continuing to live well curriculum, that, well, the continuing to live well is another one that you developed, and you're right. It does, the word does need to get out there, and these types of programs, I think that there is a constant struggle on. I mean, we were fortunate that we had dedicated funding for them for a while, and it went away. But you're right. It's a shame that they're not out there being prominently featured now.
I have one more question, Cherie.
Yeah.
Considering today's new generation, do you ever worry about complacency?
Say that again.
Do you worry about complacency
Oh, absolutely.
with the young people? Because they didn't have to go through what the 3 of us had to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Complacency is a real concern. And I think we're seeing that the 40 and 50-year-olds are starting to get it, but the younger folks, they just don't get it. It's just not resonating with them.
We haven't gotten it there yet for them for whatever reason, and I think that goes into even a lot of organizational development and so forth. There seems to be a real struggle there. Well, Cherie, I can't believe this, but our time for part 1 of our discussion with you and with another guest from Cedar Rapids who you'll be meeting shortly is coming to an end. We want to thank you so much for participating and for sharing some of your wisdom. I think we could have gone on for 2 hours, but we'll have a chance to hear from you again in part 2 of this episode. So I want to thank all the viewers for tuning in and hope that you'll return to see Hello It's Us next Monday at the same time, where you'll have a chance to hear from Cherie and a colleague and friend of hers. So with that, I'll bid all of you good night and thank you for watching.
Thank you, Cherie. Have a good week out there. Bye.